Hi, everyone. Welcome again to this month's unboxing or review of the Genesys Cloud release notes for November 2022. I'm Edgar Quadra, Solutions Consultant here at Star Telecom, and today I've got Randall. Randall, go ahead and give a little introduction there.
Hey everyone, my name is Randall Cuttrell, and I work with Edgar in the Solutions Consulting team. And I'm really excited because there's a lot of cool releases this week.
Yeah, this month you meant.
Yeah, this month, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. It looks a little light in the features, and what I've did notice a trend in here is at the beginning of the month or so here for November 2nd, there is a lot of email features. So definitely clients that are using email or have a need or have been exploring email. So for example, let's say the outbound campaigns for emails. We'll get into it this month.
Yeah, so I take a different view on that because I think that what Genesys has done over the last year is they've released a lot of major improvements and features and functionalities in Genesys Cloud. When I look at this release, what I see is a lot of tweaks just to make them better. I do a lot of cooking, and sometimes when you build a dish, you build that dish, and then at the end, you just add the little spices to get it right to where you need it to be. And that's what I see. This is just a lot of the little tweaks at the end to make sure that the solution works the way it should.
That's right. Thanks, Randall. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into November 2nd releases here. So first one is part of the communicate features and international number plans as outbound routes changes. So by default, when a new Genesys org has spun up, Genesys would automatically enable outbound number plans for international calls. So that, I guess there's been feedback, and that led to a lot of either mistaken international calling or fraudulent activity. So now by default, Genesys automatically disables the number plan for international dialing, and it needs to be turned on for a case-by-case basis. Very smart, very good low-hanging fruit update there. All right, now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, the features in the contact center. The very first one is introducing Genesys Cloud digital licenses. So what this gives now is a certain license pack for contact centers that only need to handle digital interactions with the customers. So these licenses do not include any voice features and only digital. So digitals is social media. So social media channels down below here. So all those digital kind of chat channels, and then also some of the AI tools. So we'll get into throughout this month, but the knowledge base and knowledge surfacing, agent assist, all that is available now for a case-by-case basis. And you can see it kind of broken down to the licenses packs that we're used to. So Genesys Cloud 2, and then digital, Genesys Cloud 3, and then digital as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, I really think that this is a step in the right direction for Genesys. What's happening in the industry, and this trend has been going on for a long time, is the number of voice interactions versus alternate interactions, digital interactions, if you will, SMS, email, chat. Voice is going down, everything else is going up. And so some of Genesys competitors are saying, hey, you know what? Genesys is old school. They deal more with voice. We're the new school. We have the right tools for the new digital age. And I think what Genesys has done is they've said, you know what? We are the market leader in contact center. We have the most powerful tools for ACD integration. And by the way, if you want to do a digital contact center, because of the way that they've built Genesys Cloud, which really, the different types of interactions are just different types of interactions, whether it's voice or email or whatever. What they've done here is they've said, you know what? If there are customers out there that just want a digital offering, fine, let's do that. Because they can. The product is built and the flexibility is there to address that market. Versus saying that our product is only for that market. We hit both markets.
Yeah, great. So I'll let our marketing guy kind of wrap around an article around that. Should be good.
Yes.
Yeah. So agentless email notifications. So this is actually really cool. So again, like I said, there's a lot of new email features within Genesis for this month. So what this allows you to do is administrators can build in through the architect data actions that will kick off emails. So let's say, for example, here you have a need. An agent wraps up a call and selects a wrap up code for update on shipping information or something along those lines there. That wrap up code can trigger a data action, and that pushes an email or an appointment reminder for shipping info. So very cool. Agentless email notifications. Next is a big one here, outbound email campaigns. So now we're used to voice campaigns, so agentless or predictive and things like that. So now what we can do within Genesis is use that same tool, that same campaign tool, and use email now as the media for outbound campaigns. So what we can do here is you can upload a list, and that list can contain the email message that you want, or you can build canned responses in the canned responses library and then point that campaign to use a canned response as the body of that email campaign. Incredibly powerful tool. Again, this could potentially eliminate a third-party application that maybe your marketing team uses. Or again, maybe it's just a new avenue to contact your customers when it comes to RMAs, or for our utility companies, maybe send an email for outages, things like that. So
yeah, I like that idea. And there's on those two topics, there's a couple other things I want to bring to light. So on the first one, the email notifications. It's very easy for you to start looking at building a self-serve option that includes a ticketing system here. So imagine if I can allow if I can use text to speech to text to capture what the customer is saying, and then I can use this feature to take that text, put it into an email, and then send it to a ticketing system. I've built a self-serve option out of the box, as well as an integration into a traditional ticketing system to incorporate the information I need to generate that new ticket. Right. So on the second one, on email notifications, one of the things that's really powerful about the outbound dialing environment, outbound dialer, if you will, with Genesys Cloud. So of course, Genesys Cloud Dialer was based on the Pure Connect dialer that came from Interactive Intelligence. And one of the shortcomings of that dialer was that it would grab a batch of records to be dialed and work from a queue. And then when that queue was empty, we'd go grab more. What they've done with the dialer inside of Genesys Cloud is there's no batch. So you can actually inject records to be dialed immediately. Why am I telling you this? Because that allows you to do things. For example, you may want to trigger an event inside of your CRM. Let's say I want to send out an email notification to my customer because they have to renew their payment option or renew their account or whatever. Well, rather than just sending that email out nilly-willy or using an email campaign tool that would be included in the CRM, now we can leverage Genesys Cloud to do that, where we know that the outbound ACD dialing environment is far more feature-rich, has better reporting, and also is part of this unified contact center suite. We can leverage that in order to provide that experience. So when you think about email notifications and you think about email campaigns, the sky's the limit when you start looking at how this stuff can be used in order to message your customers that way.
Yeah, so definitely call Randall and he'll help you get that set up there. He is
Call
our
us.
outbound. Tell us.
Yes, please.
So, okay, the next few here are more along the lines of reporting, right? So now that Genesys is handling this new email media for the outbound. It's always been able to capture emails and display it to the agent. So delivery statuses for outbound email campaigns, right? So what is it? Has it failed? Do I have an invalid email? This information will help you scrub your email list to have a tighter email list and be able to make sure that you are sending emails to valid addresses. Manage time zones for outbound campaigns. Same thing that we do with voice. You can manage the time zone for emails. So send East Coast, Central, West Coast emails, or even other regions of the world to adhere to time zones, either for here in North America, FTC, and Canada's CRTC regulations for campaign for robocalls or robo emails. I don't know what the term for that one is now, but if there are regulations around that, definitely Genesys supports that.
There's one more piece I want to add to that. The other piece that's important when it comes to using time zones is that even though it may seem pie in the sky, it makes a lot more sense, especially today when everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket, or they're sitting at their desk with their email client open. It makes a lot more sense to send out emails when people are ready to receive those emails than when they're not sitting at their desk, or they're sleeping or whatever. What I'm saying is you want to make the impact and send a message when they're going to read it as soon as it gets in. When it gets buried in the list, if you think about going into your inbox today and looking at all these different emails that you receive from all these different vendors and whatever, you just scroll through. But if it's on time and it's at the top of the list and it's delivered to you when you're actually, in work mode or whatever, it makes a lot more sense. I think the delivery time is important. Like I said, these are all just little tweaks that don't seem that big, but can make a major impact to the experience for the customer.
Very smart, Randall. Yeah. I can definitely see that now. So let's say if we take predictive engagement data and see the majority of our clients are browsing our website at this time of the day. Okay, if we're going to do email marketing or email campaigns, let's target emails maybe around this time or something like that, right? So much more intelligent time delivery of emails. That's awesome. Awesome. Increased email size limit for custom SMTP integrations. So just increasing the limit of, let's say, attachments that can go from your email server Outlook into Genesys Cloud. New filters and columns in context search view. So again, going back to new columns and be able to view how my email is. So let's say under the content search tool, there's new columns. So to, from, subject line columns. So if I jump into performance and I go to my interactions view and content, do I have one here? Let me pop one open. Interactions and then content. There are now new columns in this particular area. So the to, subject, topics isn't part of that, but from, right? So all that information now is able and searchable, right? So I can go down into my filters and look for to, from, right? So these are, if you're looking for specific email addresses from a customer, maybe you can see how often they're calling in. Is there a reason, how often they're emailing? Why is that? Or if it's spam, right? So let's look at how many emails are coming from spam addresses and then just block them at the very top of the email architect or email flow. New filters. So audio hook billing for active use only. So this is when, if you have your IVR and it's enabled to listen and maybe transcribe within the IVR, whenever there's a pause or there's blank audio, Genesys will track that and not bill time for that unused time when transcription is actually needed, right? So just tightening up and making it more fair use for that more advanced feature. Cumulative uploads of external metrics and performance scorecards. So not sure if everyone knew, but under the activity and scorecards, this is obviously we can build metrics around or points and scorecards around metrics of the contact center. But what you can also do with these scorecards is import external data into the scorecards and give the agent a holistic view on how they're performing. So, for example, here, maybe we want to bring in the CSAT scores after their interactions. Well, you can build a CSAT score card on this screen here so they can see how they're doing from their CSATs. Another example is daily sales, first contact rate resolution, leads, right? So from a sales contact center perspective, let's bring in some of that sales data and get a more holistic view. So I'm always very excited when I start seeing customers trying to bring in external data with the contact center data to get more holistic view.
Yeah, I also think it's a step towards using Genesys Cloud as a platform for agents to digest information about their job and their experience at work. So, for example, we could use, let's say that you have a health program at work. I know that I worked at a contact center where a gym was installed, and then you start putting in a program for managing health. And so people are tracking weight loss, or perhaps they're tracking how often they're exercising, and you can display that information there.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Right. Or, so there's different ways that we can start leveraging that tool to have external inputs and view that data in such a way that it can be digested by the agents and give them that whole holistic view. Especially now where we have workforces where everybody's working from everywhere, right? Maybe they're not in the office. So yeah, I love how Genesys is not just going, oh, we just focus on our contact center or contact center suite. No, they're building a platform that can tie into many different systems and to build that toolbox to effectively allow the agent to come to work and do their job.
Yeah. And Genesys calls it workforce engagement management, right? So engage in your workforce. And think outside the box, as Randall, right? Maybe, this might be a little personal, but bring in some of that health data and then build activity around that or something like along those lines, right? We're all working remotely. I would love to be able to see how, Randall's doing with his journey in weight loss. Sorry, not to get personal there. Sorry, everybody.
No, I mean, I think it's a great thing. I mean, and also it can in certain, I mean, I'm just with weight loss, but I mean in anything you can think about. Maybe you have a charity set up at work and or a food drive or something like that, and you want to show it, and that why not, right? Why not?
That's a great point. Yeah.
I'm
going to use that for my next demo. Thanks, Randall.
No worries.
Yeah. Deprecations and announcements. So an API endpoints being changed or removed. So they had a legacy endpoint for key management on call recordings. I know there was a new feature maybe a couple months back that circumvent or replaced this API. So that API is no longer going to be part of the tool suite. And then this is new IP ranges for cloud media services expansion. So Genesys Cloud is always constantly expanding their support of different regions, and the cloud media services, this is what handles the actual voice conversation between different regions or between different servers within the Genesys environment. So they've now expanded the IP range for those media servers. Just Genesys has a larger footprint across the world, and that's what this announcement means. More specifically, if you are Genesys Cloud Voice or BYOC user, our administrators and us at Star Telecom, we would manage that for you to make sure that those new IP ranges are within scope of our firewalls.
Right. This is just down the path of Genesys really expanding their media fabric to allow businesses to use Genesys Cloud in one single org to service offices throughout North America and in some cases throughout the world. So as they do that, they need to provide more resources to make that happen. And how do we point to resources in an IP network? Of course, with IP addresses. That's why it's always important to keep up with these updates. And as Edgar pointed out, to ensure your firewall is up to date with any new IP addresses to be allowed for media.
Well, thank you. All right, let's move on now to November 9th. Here's a very important one. So let's get serious for a second here. Um, so you can dial 988 within the Genesys telephone, so WebRTC or any telephone that's attached to Genesys Cloud, and reach suicide and crisis lifeline right away. So this is a built-in native dial plan that Genesys now supports out of the box.
Love this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is right down the road of moving towards recognizing mental health as a serious issue and providing the mechanisms and tools to allow people to get healthier mentally. Right? It's important, especially with the stresses that we're going on today in the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Randall. Okay. So the next one, analyze feedback from the knowledge optimizer. So I talked about in the previous one about the agent, or I will be talking about the agent assistant, forget now. But here is the knowledge base within Genesys Cloud that's built into it. So now this is a dashboard view to analyze that feedback. So let me just visualize it so you can see it better. But there is now within your knowledge articles here, optimizer, under the knowledge section. So you can get an analytical view on how well received these knowledge-based articles are being not only used by your agents, but also by the customers. So from a customer standpoint, you can build a web bot or a voice bot to present knowledge-based articles to them. And then the customer will just click on plus or up finger up, finger down, and then you'll get that feedback. So not the best example here. Again, this is our lab environment, so there are some not the best data here, but you can use this now to gain more insight on how effective your knowledge articles are, and improvements need to be done there. Okay, so Google Cloud Dialog CX resell integration into secure flows. So now you can take advantage of the Google Dialogflow engine in secure flows that are PCI compliant. So for example here, maybe you want to use Google Dialogflow to capture some health information or to capture credit card information and use that to process it. Then we can take advantage, we can put that engine in a secure flow to do that work for us.
Right. I think this is hugely powerful. This is going down the line of providing a much more natural experience for people calling in and being asked to use, for example, let's talk about a use case. We need a customer to go in and maybe update their billing information, or like you said, health records. We can leverage Google Dialogflow with bots, natural speech language, and artificial intelligence to give a much more natural experience to the customer going through that, so that it's not, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. We can ask, it can be a much more natural conversation.
Yeah.
Which and I think that addresses. I don't want to be too blunt with this, but there's certain people and age groups out there that don't like using this technology because they find they're not as used to using such a linear technology as press 1, press 2. They want much more of a natural experience, and this lends itself to that.
For sure. Okay, so the next one here is Genesys Temple Employee Access. So those of you that might not be familiar, this is just the Temple app allows you to run basically the workforce management suite for agents within a mobile environment. And there's a permission now, so you can disable access to Temple for select users. So prior to this access, anyone can download this, and as long as you had the license, you can go ahead and run the app. Well, now you can restrict that to select number of users there. Okay, and that's just the Temple app I'll get into a little bit later, but there's ability to do time off and manage from an agent perspective, manage your schedule from a mobile experience. Yeah. Moving right along now, let's go to November 16th. Opt out of voicemail and replace system audio with default architect voicemail flow. I do remember, I think it was mid this year or early this year, Genesys opened up the ability to change that voicemail flow and that voicemail experience, right? So when you call into your extension and you get the voicemail, that particular voicemail experience can be changed now within Genesys. And this now gives you even much more ability to change the audio. So maybe you want to do a more customized or use a different voice for your email experience. Genesys gives us now the ability to change a lot of that with this new tool. And that's all done through the Architect tool. Genesys Agent Assist in Agent Workspaces. See, I knew this was coming up. I forgot when. But this now allows an agent, and almost in real time, to search for knowledge base articles and canned responses. If, for example, when, and this is just a screenshot here, when I'm in chatting with a customer and the Genesys Agent Assist picks up keywords in chat and starts presenting or knowledge surfacing articles, maybe some of them maybe not apply, and maybe in my past interactions, I have seen the article that allows me to or gives me the article, so the agent can go ahead and type in by manually searching those articles directly in the agent interface. And how that works here, we're familiar with a lot of the tools, so this is where your notes and callback buttons are. Well, there's now the interaction button, knowledge surfacing, and you can just go ahead and type that in when you're chatting in a web messaging environment. And
yeah, it's great stuff. Yeah. I think this is another example of Genesys moving quickly to put a feature out and then improving upon it. So Agent Assist, I remember last spring when it first came out, it was very new technology to be incorporated inside of it. Of course, there were Agent Assist applications that you could bolt on, but to have it included in the product was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But it would provide those suggestions to you based on artificial intelligence, and you couldn't you couldn't go in and like you said, put in search for things. It would just present the information to you. So now this is just another tweak where you can go in, now you can go in and actually type things in and search, versus having artificial intelligence suggest what you should, what you probably need to find.
Yeah.
Or see. Good stuff.
All right. The next one here again is part of Tempo. So agents can go ahead and open up their Tempo application here and go to time off, and would be able to say like, oh, I am running late for this for my next activity, right? So maybe I'm running late on my lunch, and then I can go ahead and open up my Tempo app and just quickly send a notification like, hey, supervisor, I'm running late for my lunch. So that's it. Coaching appointment configuration improvement can now use the improved process to add an agent to an existing coaching appointment. Okay. So when I go to my appointments, my inbox here, and I know I have a coaching I have a coaching appointment coming up in here. A supervisor can very quickly add an agent to my coaching session from the new improved interface. So if I go and open up the screen here, when I schedule a coaching, I can add them to an existing appointment. So as a super or as a quality manager, I'm going through a couple of interactions for quality management purposes, obviously, and I want to add these interactions to the same coaching assignment that are already created. So that's where this new interface is enabling us to do. So let me see if I can quickly do it here in my lab environment, go to quality summary, and I don't have access to it in here. So I would have a coaching button here, and I could schedule a coaching call and go forth from there. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Not the best demo for that, for this improvement here. Improved voice transcription accuracy for Spanish. So Genesys is now, for voice transcription, is improving the Spanish recognition, right? So if yo estoy hablando español y yo quiero que Genesis Cloud cambia que yo estoy diciendo en las palabras en Genesis Cloud, then now Genesis Cloud is able to better translate what I just said. That's me showing off a little bit, everybody. Limited details for interactions older than 1.5 years available in select regions. Yeah, so this is kind of interesting here. So depending on how old your interactions are, Genesys will change some of the data that gets presented back for regions, for select regions for that. So kind of interesting here. I have to deep dive a little bit into the rationale around this, and then why for specific regions. Yeah. Let's take a quick look here.
Because there are new rules in specific regions around data and around how long it can be viewed and what can be viewed and that sort of thing. I know that's becoming a much more of a serious issue and topic when you look at data management rules in, for example, in the UK versus the US versus Canada, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the last one here, IP addresses for data regions interaction automatically allow. Genesys now will automatically allow IP addresses that originate from data action integrations. This eliminates the need for administrators to explicitly add these addresses to allow lists. Okay, so if you create that interaction in the data actions, so let's say if I enable Microsoft Power BI and I create that authentication and let Power BI from this instance talk to Genesys Cloud, then Genesys will automatically allow that IP address or that initiating server there. So just a small improvement there. We'll see over time if that will change or not. I don't know. I suspect maybe that could be a safety or security risk. I don't know, Randall. What's your thoughts on that? I don't like the idea of automatically allowing IP addresses now that I'm thinking about it more and more.
Well, I mean, even if you allow the IP addresses, you still need the authentication information.
That's
right?
True.
Yeah, IP addresses and it automatically sets them up when you configure the configuration. So if you don't configure it, then the IP addresses won't be allowed. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see it too much as a security risk. I actually like the idea.
Okay. Well, you've got more experience than I do, so fair enough. Okay, and now the last one here. November 30th, Contact Center introducing topic mining. So this is very exciting. And let me just open it up here and we can talk about it. But basically what this is allowing now within the Genesys environment is if you can enable that different queues, and Genesys will start tracking how often certain topics or how often keywords or phrases are being mentioned in your contact center, and then start putting some analysis around that. So let me bring up this environment, and I'm going to go to admin, and down under quality is topic miner. And there's been a bunch of new minors already created. So if I go create new, I give it a name, what's the expected language in there, what's my data source, and how long do I want this minor to run for, and is it call, messages, participants, right? So this is if it's voice, do I want to monitor both channels or just one particular channel? And then which queues I'm going to apply this to. So once you've set that all up, you can go ahead and do some, let it run. And I'm going to find one here under calls. I had one a little bit earlier that I thought was good. AV principles. Okay. So what's happening here is this is my minor, and it's now picking up how much percentage-wise these words are being picked up, right? So, and within those words, within these topics, what are those phrases and how often they're being said, right? So these are my individual topics. Think of them as, let's say, categories. And then within those categories, these are the phrases that are being picked up. And what's the percentage of those phrases being said? Incredibly powerful stuff now. So really? I can use this. Yeah, just incredible. I think the sky is the limit here, but what you can do from, let's say, just a quality management perspective, but also from business intelligence, right? Some of you may know that you can build your own topics and to track certain keywords. We just were talking to a client a couple of days ago. We did a demo, and they service public transit buses, and they gave us a scenario where they search their emails, their service emails, for certain keywords, and they're doing that right now. And like, okay, well, did you know that Genesys can do that for you almost automatically? And we showed them this. We showed them, okay, let's create a topic for model X for bus, and then what are those parts or those particular service requests, and they can now almost in real time now, how often is that topic or that part being brought up in service calls. Does that then mean that maybe there's a defect in that service part? And now can we proactively RMA or proactively reach out to customers that's saying, hey, we're starting to see a trend potentially of part X for this bus. You know, how much money can that save a company from a PR perspective, from a R&D, whatever the case may be, right? All because now Genesys is monitoring that for you in real time.
I see this tool in so many different scenarios where you can use it to collect information. Here's a couple of good ones. What are my customers calling in about, so that I can start looking at the trends and then addressing the low-hanging fruit, the ones that I could address perhaps was a self-serve option. So for example, if I start tracking what people are contacting me for and start categorizing them, then I can start looking at which ones I can build a self-serve option on. That's one use case right there. Another one that's really cool is, let's say you're a service provider. Maybe I'm a utilities provider, or you can see one right here. We have one for gas leak. Well, of course, when they're opening up tickets, and then you could start looking for trends in your ticketing system. But the further you go back to the source to start gathering your big data, the quicker you're going to get it. So what am I talking about here? Well, if we start looking for trends, and we set this up so we can start seeing these trends, when you start seeing certain topics blow up, you know that you need to address those topics and start pivoting the business to address them. Whether it's, in this example, a gas leak, like Edgar said, it could be a product offering that you're putting out there, and there's consistency around people reporting issues with that. Could be you're a SaaS provider, right? So you have a service offering out there, and you want a way so that you can start looking at very quickly when we see some of these spikes, we can start looking at addressing the problem and fixing it before it becomes too much of a problem. This is how you see services like Genesys Cloud themselves being able to address problems very quickly before sometimes it even impacts the customer at all. This is how we can keep that 100% uptime. It's getting the information about the problem and how bad it is very quick, right? So the use cases we talked about, just to go over it, is we can use this to start looking at categorizing why people are contacting the contact center, and then
Mhm.
looking at whether or not we can address those with self-service options. If we have challenges with staffing the contact center, or we want to move to more of a self-serve option, we can look at it. We can use this to look at trending to see maybe what products are selling well, what products aren't selling well, or if there are issues with products, or people are happy with products. And
Yep.
also, we could use it to report on issues with the service that we're providing, right? So just a few
Mhm.
things. Oh, and one more I'll throw in there. You could also use it to start building your topics, or sorry, your training modules, or to make sure that agents have the right information at their fingertips, because that's what people are calling in for when they need help.
Yep. Sky's the limit here. Like
Sky's the
this
limit.
is what Genesis is built for. Why you get Genesis, I think, is these business insights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you're running the contact center, but the contact center is like the heartbeat of your business.
Mm-hmm.
And these tools here will help you make sure, that your heartbeat is always regular and there's
Right,
no issues.
for sure.
There it is, tying back to the health that we talked about a little bit earlier. Historical shrinkage data. So, Randall, I think you have better insight on this one than I do.
So yeah, it's what kind of interested me. So what is shrinkage? Traditionally, shrinkage in a retail environment was taking account for the product that you can't account for when you do your audit. So, in other words, I'm running a store. I do an audit once a month. I bought 10,000 units of a product, and I do an audit. I sold 5,000, and I can account for 4,000 on the shelf. So my shrinkage would be the 1,000 units that I can't account for. Maybe they got stolen, they got lost, they got broken, whatever. That's shrinkage. Well, in this context, shrinkage accounts for, I scheduled X amount of agents to be available during a certain time period to take interactions. Maybe I use my workforce management to predict, and I scheduled those agents. But I want to look at, of the agents that I scheduled, how many of them weren't able to actually make it on shift because of different issues, and how did that impact the business? That's shrinkage. So, for example, if I needed 10 agents on Monday, only 8 showed up. The shrinkage, well, there's 2 agents that we didn't have available. So what's the shrinkage? What did I lose by not having those 2 agents? And what that can do is it can help you justify over. So if you have continual shrinkage, maybe you need to adjust your scheduling a bit. So for example, if I have on Mondays, if I consistently see that I need 10 agents, but I'm always seeing that I'm down 2 agents and it's impacting the business this much, well, maybe I schedule 12 agents, because I know historically I'm always down by 2, so I can deal with the shrinkage by overscheduling, and not the business isn't impacted by because I have the agents available, and then therefore shrinkage gets minimized.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool topic. It's really how Genesys is building tools and functionality into Genesys Cloud to deal with making sure we have enough people to service the customer, to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks, and we have the data to address it when they do.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you for that, Randall.
Mm.
All right. Okay, next one here, everybody, is filter by topic dialect. So, touching back to the topic mining that we talked about a little bit, but under performance views, and if I'm going to go open up here, and I want to do topics. So topic trends, I believe it is here. I can now filter by the dialect that is associated to that particular topic. And I can't find it right now at the moment. Let's see if it's under content and transcript dialect. Okay, here it is. So let's say I am my business, and I provide support or service to multiple demographics from a language perspective, and I'm monitoring those particular languages or dialects throughout my contact center. You can filter now these transcription the topics by the dialect. So very powerful. Again, going back to business analysis and being able to get a good heartbeat of your contact center. So Genesys has given us more tools to do that. Work plan information and agent scheduled views. So this is cool. Going back to the workforce engagement, well, wouldn't it be great if I knew what the unpublished schedule will look like next week, so I can plan by either my time offs, or I can plan for a doctor's note or for a doctor's appointment or any type of personal appointment that I may have. Well, within now the agent view of activity and schedule here, I'm able to now see for the agent, they're now able to see unpublished schedules that I'm part of, so I can plan accordingly a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, whatever your publishing view or setup is like within workforce engagement. Okay. Messenger headless support. So when we deploy a web messaging within Genesys Cloud, on your website is the default view of the messenger, so the default widget, what that looks like. So in a second here, it'll load up. So we'll be able to see what that looks like. So something like this. Well, now Genesys gives developers, your web developers, the ability to we can give you the same code and the whole engine that runs the messenger, but now you can go ahead and completely customize the look of this widget. So when Brandon's very important to your company, you can change this whole look, the whole experience, but still use Genesys as the backend engine that's driving this conversation. And that's the headless support. Increased email size limit for custom AWS integrations. So if your email is being run through AWS, we've now increased the size of the email attachments and email in general that's running through AWS. Okay. Built-in messenger sender address information variable in architect inbound flows. They can now use this sender address info variable within Genesys to run to route or to do decisions within the inbound flow. So just another metric and just another routing ability that Genesys gives our participants to be able to do so. This is cool. This has been last week, Randall and me, we've been working on a client need, and we brought this technology to see if it could be used. But Azure cognitive services, text-to-speech can now be used in secure flow. So we talked about in the previous release where you can use Genesys Dialogflow in secure flows. Well, now you can use Microsoft similar features in secure flow. So
yeah, this is a very powerful one too. And sorry, I just wanted to add, and in fact, you can go and run it. So if you go take a look at the App Foundry, and you find that feature on the App Foundry, you can actually, let's just go right to the App Foundry and find it in the App Foundry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Edgar to actually show you this because this blew me away. So this is the easiest way to find it. So Edgar's just going to the App Foundry. So just type in speech to text if you like, or that'll work too, I think. So if we find it's down at the bottom, I can see the icons at the third level. Keep going down, one more, and it's way over to the right. There we go, Microsoft. So speech to text, let's grab that one, yeah. And see where it says there should be trial. You can, allows you to engage customer. Maybe where it's the other one. Let's try the other one. Yeah.
Chest.
Yeah, that's it right there. All right. So here you can actually hit play and start talking, and it'll convert it to your text. So I don't know if it'll pick it up because we're on this call, but let's see what happens.
Let's see. I am now testing this new feature that can be enabled for Genesys Cloud.
All right, let's do it in Spanish to see what it does. Actually, no, you got to change your
estoy
language.
probando este feature
You
in
got to
Genesys
change the
Cloud.
language, Edgar. See at the top, see choose language. Go ahead and choose Spanish.
Oh my
Spanish.
gosh. There it is,
Holy cow,
Nicaragua.
there we go. Nicaragua, there
There
we
it
go.
is. There it is.
All
There
right,
it
let's
is.
try
Okay.
it.
Me gusta comer gallo pinto cuando que estoy trabajando con Genesys Cloud.
I love it. All right, let's do one more. Let's choose. I don't know if it'll pick up my microphone, but let's try French.
Oh, I don't think it will. It's using my mic.
Oh, it's using your mic. So, but
Yeah.
I guess so. Why is we so excited to this? What's the use case here? Everybody's heard about artificial intelligence. It takes huge processing power to be able to listen to audio and convert it to text, and to deal with things like accents, nuances in speech, and whatever. And so Genesys that's why Genesys doesn't have this natively. They're tapping into different engines to make this happen. Or in some cases, they've got some of it, but to really get a very accurate capture and then translation to text, you really need to have a lot of processing power. So that's why these services are coming up. Now think about it for a second. We spoke and then it got captured into text. That means that it would be very easy for us to build a self-service IVR where the customer speaks, we capture the text, and we can use that text to do whatever we want. It could run a query, right? It could do something like populate a case notes or something like that, or update case notes. I mean, the sky's
Secure
the limit.
IVR, by the way. This
Right.
enables it in secure.
Right. So yeah, for example, in secure IVR, so that means in situations where you want to make sure that you're in a secure IVR, where normally you're dealing with sensitive data you don't want anybody else to hear. Well, now you have that available to do that sort of thing. This is extremely powerful, and this is, we're getting really now to the point where we can provide a much more powerful self-serve environment, so we can preserve our agents to do the things that we really need our agents to do that we can address with artificial intelligence and tools like this.
Excellent. All right, thanks for that.
Mm.
And last one here is an UI change when it comes to managing configuring emails within Genesys Cloud. So the UI has now been changed and just given a more updated look. So some of you, if you're in here quite a lot, you know that it has changed the look, but it just goes in line with the rest of the UI changes that Genesys has been pushing out in its platform. And that ends for November release for 2022. I want to thank Randall. Great conversation with us. I really felt like we were vibing today, this month.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. And for everyone that's been watching or still hanging in with us, thanks for watching. Have a great holidays coming up in December, and look forward to talking to everyone and showing you next month's release. Have a great
Give
holidays,
us a call.
everybody.
Give us a call if you have
Give us a call.
any additional questions about any of this stuff or anything. For sure, give us a call.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.